right, so I am very happy to be sharing with everyone today our new book, Dear Therapist, You Deserve More. It's so lovely to have a number of the authors here today. LaQueshia Clemons, Chantel Brewster, Pastor Brigitte Brown, and Brittany Cooper is all here. We also have Gina Lavallo Chiarovalato, and we have Danielle Turner is not with us today, but she's also a contributing author, so I want to give her a shout out here. So this book is available on Amazon, both in paperback and ebook. It will be available more widely in a few weeks, but you can grab your copy of the free ebook today. And LaQueshia, I'd love to hear from you what inspired you to bring this book together.
Yeah, so this is exciting because it really is a passion project, and it was something that was always on my mind starting out in the field of being a social worker, being a psychotherapist, and I wanted there was a lot of misconceptions out there, and you don't know what you don't know. And I wanted to change that for the next generation, for the people that were up and coming into this field. And it was really important for me to get different perspective, especially from other therapists who I admire, who I see them doing this work, and all their hard work that they put in. So this was a passion project for me, where if I can come and bring us all together and put our expertise, our experience, and everything into one book, then the future generation can carry this and either understand and know like somebody else has gone through what they've gone through and what they can do to change that. So yeah, it was really important for me to be able to get the people that I admire together so that we can do this passion project together.
And I know when you first came to me with the topic of this book, my heart just like leapt out of my chest because, I'm a social worker too. I'm a publisher now, but my background's in social work. And for 15 years, I worked in the nonprofits, and it just killed me to see people that were doing social work or therapy work. And, they loved what they do. They were passionate about what they did, but so many people were just burning out left and right, or like the need never ended. So there was like, how do you fill your cup? I don't know. Right. And so I love that you came to me with with the vision that people that have done the work and lived it and built successful practices and lives and work and know what it takes to make that happen could help the new
Yeah.
people coming in, and also people that are in the work now that are going, I know something's not right. How do I fix this?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And also the resiliency, like, to go through, like, people go through things all the time. We've all gone through our own different things, and to still be able to come out at the end of that on the other side, and the resiliency. And so it was so important for me to show up and coming therapists, like, look, you guys are not alone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can get through this, you can do this, and don't be afraid of this work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'd love to talk with a few of the authors and have them introduce themselves. So Chantel Brewster, would you share a little bit about the work that you do and what inspired you to be part of the anthology?
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. I am Chantel Brewster. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist associate. Also, I'm a trauma therapist, EMDR trained. And the reason why I agreed to do this chapter is because it's the heart of my story of becoming a therapist and how it helped me, turn my vulnerable moments more so into a roadmap for resilience.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you. And Pastor Brigitte Brown, could you share a little bit about the work you do?
Hello, I am Pastor Bridget Brown, a licensed clinical social worker, and I am also a EMDR certified trauma therapist. And my stumbling into becoming a trauma therapist came from my own trauma healing and really learning the language of what I was experiencing because I didn't know. I was always just responding. But when I started my own EMDR therapy, I realized as I was healing that now and even though I was healing, I was also a healer because I was still working as a therapist.
Mm,
And I was struggling with being a person providing support for others and also allowing myself the opportunity to heal myself. So, my chapter is raised in survival and rooted in healing.
mm,
And I had to learn how to root myself in healing and contributing that piece to this book was very important for me to be a partaker of my own healing
mm,
and allowing myself that grace to extend to myself, but also modeling to other therapists and other clients on how to do that for themselves.
mm. Very powerful. And I know the people I've probably grown the most from and learned the most from are the people that are open about that, that aren't saying,
Right,
"Hey, look, I have everything figured out now and my
right,
life is perfect." It's like
right,
people that are open about the fact that we're all learning and growing every day and in the healing process. And like we're
right,
drawn to the work because there's something that we might want to
right.
be
And
in
it's an
process with.
ongoing transformation process that we are. And we think sometimes as professionals like we've arrived because we have the certification
Mm-hmm.
and we have,
Mm-hmm.
but really life happens every day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the opportunity that we have to now utilize the skills that we've learned and taught, and really just sitting with that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
always been very difficult, especially someone who's been raised in survival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very true.
It's so
Very
strong,
true.
like just so
Mm,
powerful.
Yeah.
mm. And Brittany Cooper, I'd love to hear from you about the work you do and what inspired you to be part of this book.
Hi, everybody. I am Brittany Cooper. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the owner of Power of Choices. I'm also an educator and a psychedelic assisted integrative therapist. So what inspired me to, join this lovely group of ladies here is, number one is finding your tribe. So I had the privilege of writing two chapters in this book, and one of them is finding your tribe. So essentially what that means is as an entrepreneur, as a clinician, a social worker, educator, all these things that we do within our field, like we don't have to do it alone. We don't have to do it alone. And it's very important that you find your group of people that is going to not only like support you, but also hold you accountable to, your goals and the things that you're doing, and also be able to give you advice and be vulnerable with you. So luckily this group of ladies are my tribe, so that was easy for me to say like yes, I would love to be a part of this project. So that was one thing, and then also just touching on kind of like the mental health tax that I like to call it on entrepreneurs, on healing practitioners, on clinicians that we are, and how much that is a lot that we deal with silently while we're doing the work that we're doing. So I just wanted to kind of shed some light on the vulnerability that we have doing this work. And it gets heavy. It gets
Right.
heavy. And I think, instead of like sweeping it under the rug, we got to acknowledge it so that we get the support and help that we need in addition to, finding our tribe. So, I'm a strong advocate for, therapists to have a therapist. We do heavy work. I can't express that enough. So I just kind of wanted to shed light on that too, because that's been a part of my journey, within the field as well.
Thank you so much. So, LaQueshia, would you like to share a little bit more about you could be reading from the chapter a portion or talking a little bit more about what you wrote?
Yeah. So I want to do a little bit of both. So just
Mhm.
a little bit about like what I wrote. First, I want to say like the I touched in here on the therapists, all the therapists that are in this anthology, and how, again, how much they inspire me every single day, and how just proud and excited I am for them to be a part of this with me. So again, I just want to I'm going to keep expressing that because it means so much to me. So, secondly, I wrote about just my overall journey, my experience into social work, into my first job as a therapist, as a social worker, trying to get through it in a community agency, which a lot of us usually start off that way. I know things are shifting nowadays where not, you don't have to go to community agency anymore fresh out of school, but I know a lot of us, like, that's usually where we land, is those community agencies where I call them factories, where they're pumping clients in and out, in and out, in and out. And for us, it led to so much burnout. And for me, myself, not only did it lead to burnout, it's low pay, and it led to me having like physical symptoms and not even realizing like that I was not doing well physically, which I touched on in the book, but also my mental health. Like, I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, working in these community agencies and not even realizing that like I was suffering so badly from anxiety just because of all the one, I had a high level expectations on myself. And then to go to a community agency where you feel like you're never winning because they have such high standards of your, what do they call it? Where you got to see a certain number of clients. They have such high expectations of the amount of clients you have to see. And then you're trying to do good work that way. You're trying to meet those numbers, and then you're trying to, be able to satisfy your clients and their needs. And a lot of times in those community agencies, these are like really tough, mentally ill clients. So all of that being so taxing, and as a brand new, fresh out of school, licensed therapist, I'm like, I thought this is what it was supposed to be like. Like, this is just like, this is what I signed up for. This is, so I know you guys all could relate to that. But I thought, this is what I'm supposed to sign up for. This is what I'm supposed to just do. And that's not true. That's not the case. That's not true. And I wanted to talk about that and let other therapists know, or those even, fresh out of school, that we don't just have to run to community agencies, and that we have these skills that we can do in so many other areas. Like, we really can go anywhere. Like, you name it, you can go anywhere. And Liz, you're actually a really great example of that because you became a publisher. Like
Mhm.
that, that's a way that you transferred your skills into publishing. So I wanted to let other therapists know, like, you don't have to stay there. You can find something else. I literally thought that I made it because I got a state job. I was like, oh, you made it. You got a state job. But that's what everyone told me. Once you get a state job, you good. Like, that's all you need. Which I spoke about in my chapters of the fact that that's not true. Like, the state job isn't just it. There's more to life. There's more to other things in this field. And like, you just have to dig a little deeper, but also like look outside the box. So stepping outside that box to see where else can you use your skill sets at, and where can those be transferred. Excuse me. I will read a little paragraph. Excuse me. Jeez. A little paragraph that I wrote here, and it is: success in this field is not reserved for a select few. It is possible for you too. By embracing your full potential, challenging outdated narratives. Of course, this is what happened, right? Sorry. Challenging outdated narratives and daring to dream bigger, you can build a career that is both fulfilling and financially rewarding. You are capable, you are needed, and you are worthy of success.
Mhm.
So again, I wanted to show like we can just do so many other things. it took me a minute to call myself a financial therapist. I knew I wanted to do this. I knew when I went out of school I wanted to do this, but I didn't know how. And then I had imposter syndrome to be like, how can I call myself that? Like, who am I? And I had to break that and understand my value, my worth, and like I could do this. But like a lot of times community agencies make you feel like you can't and you have to stay little. And I wanted to break that. And again, being even here with these ladies that I look up to and seeing how they've transferred their skills. Brittany knows all the time. I say she's like the entrepreneurial social worker.
Big
Like,
boss.
yeah, you name it, she probably did it. She really tapped her skills. Like she dips in a lot of things, and I love that. I love that so much about her. But again, it's showing, hey, we can do other things. Like we don't just have, it doesn't have to be therapy. It doesn't just have to be psychotherapy. So yeah.
I love that so much is that, obviously, because I never imagined I'd end up going to become a publisher and help people write their stories when I was getting my master's in social work. And it kind of actually grew from a very organic way of me becoming a coach because that sounded fun to do. And then people wanted to start writing after I published a book. So it organically grew. And one thing that you talk about in your section, LaQueshia, is how to find that niche, right? Like figure out that place where you feel just lit up and inspired. It can be supported by what you've lived through and what you've gone through and what you've created. And you can be really helpful with to people by following that path. And it can also source your life in a different kind of way than working for in a structure that's could be limiting in a lot of ways. And we don't need to listen to what people say because they have they have agenda. They're running their organization in a way that works for them, but it might not work for you.
Right.
And so you get to do something
Exactly.
different.
Exactly.
Yeah. So who would like to go next and share a little more about their chapter?
I'll go.
Chantel?
Yes, so my chapter really is rooted around the journey of healing an identity. And I wanted to go further on to thinking beyond the labels, right? And so for me, growing up in a first generation Caribbean family, I learned from a very young age around what it meant to carry like those unspoken burdens, especially around being a parentified child. And the stigma around mental health and, not knowing who I was and what these things that I was experiencing, these emotions, etc., what they meant and how to, I always used to say how to tame them in a sense. And so for me, as I think back to my story, I realized while I was in grad school, especially, one of the things that stood out for me was like the cultural expectations, and what that meant being a therapist. And so, when I first did share with some family members that this is the field that I wanted to go into, because initially I started out with nursing and I was like, yeah, this does not, I don't feel passionate about the work. And so when I did share with them about becoming a therapist, it was nobody's going to come to your office and tell you their business just like that, because in our culture it's based on secrecy, right? And so this work is a lot of work. As the others have shared, folks are coming into our office. They're sharing like really, really, really intimate, personal stories and details. And because I work especially with the Caribbean diaspora, I wanted to be that face, that person, that healer, that therapist that they can come to and know that, all right, yes, I have experienced a lot of trauma in whatever spaces, environment, etc. But I know that there's someone here who understands it, who has, who's from the same culture in a sense and who understands what it means to grow up in a Caribbean household. And so a lot of my the way how I work with my clients is around how I view myself as a person, right? How I view myself because of cultural expectations and just knowing that I don't have to necessarily live by a fixed label. And knowing that, my story is evolving and I had the power to shape it however I want to.
Mm.
And then the other thing too, with being in this field, especially, I always knew that I did not want to necessarily work as a child therapist, but I tried it. And I can say that that was the pivotal point for me where I knew that it was making me really sick. I got super burnt out. And as I did the work with my therapist, my own therapist, I also did EMDR. It was brought to my attention that because I was such a caregiver at early as age 8, no, age 7, um, there's trauma there, right? And so there's a lot of like attachment wounds and stuff that are there. And being around children in that capacity was really too much. And so, that's what I wrote in my chapter. But to conclude with what LaQueshia shared, knowing that there's so many other avenues that you can take besides being a clinical therapist is actually truly, truly, truly amazing. I do have a private practice, but I also am an international speaker. And so I want to be able to share about mental health and, trauma-informed care and being able to take care of yourselves, specifically around generational trauma.
Right.
I love that she mentioned international speaker. Yes.
Yes.
Me too. Yes.
Oh, that thing. She embodied that
Get
thing.
it. Yes.
I'm gonna go after Chantel because a lot of her chapter really sat and spoke to me and gave me understanding to my journey. I'm a first generation born here because my parents migrated from the Dominican Republic, and my identity as an American and a Dominican is always in conflict, right? And still the goal for my parents was to be that firstborn, I'm the first to graduate college, the first to buy a house, the first to, I'm the established one, but it came with the same parental trauma, emotional neglect of taking care of my younger sisters. And I didn't realize that I had all these different intergenerational trauma that was already embedded in me through the journey of them migrating to the US. It came, but a lot of the unspoken information, I was just stumbling upon it, acting out as a teen kid, becoming a teen mom. And it wasn't until I was 18 and I found Christ, right? So this is where the pastor part comes in. And I was all about Jesus, all about Jesus. But I was also in school. And what I learned was that a lot of the things that were being demonized in the church, like, oh, that's a demon. That I'm like, no, that's a spirit. That's not a spirit. I mean, it is, right, essentially, but it's schizophrenia, that'll help. We need some medication, that's depression, that's anxiety. And I'm in church in my own trauma, not really having the language, and I'm like being torn, the same torn of being Dominican and American. I'm being re-victimized in the church because now everything is like, you ain't praying hard enough, you ain't fasting enough. And really what I needed was therapy, y'all. You know what I mean? What I really needed is just to do some breath work. And what I really needed was to be around safe spaces without judgment. But what I'm learning as a pastor is that the church community doesn't have that understanding or permission. So, what I like about my chapter is that I want to normalize mental health in the church, right? I want to normalize your spiritual practice. You can have Jesus and a therapist, and you are not going to hell. And a lot of that is not really allowed. I get a lot of clients because of how I advertise myself as, a pastor. Like, what? A pastor, a therapist. Like, I could really come and unpack, this episode that I just had where all these different sexualized situations, and Jesus is not going to kill me. No. You know what I mean? That's the piece that wants to be healed. But first you have to learn to get to acceptance. And I had to learn that for myself, that even though in the Bible it says we're beautifully and wonderfully made in his image, I'm like, who image? That ugly stuff that I carry, my baggage, like what? And I normalize our experiences because they no longer have to define us. And in when I started as for school, my dad was an alcoholic and had horrible depression. A lot of that was his own childhood trauma, abandonment from his dad, and I was just always taking care of him. And when I was seeing my therapist at 16, I said, she asked me, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to be a wife. Like, I'm not going to college. Like, I'm not smart enough. And she challenged me to think about it. I said, well, maybe I'll go and be a therapist because that's what my friends are always coming to me for advice. So maybe that's what I'm going to be good at. But then I learned, like, oh, addiction, co-occurring disorders, addiction and mental health. I'm like, oh, that's what Papi has. So let me find the formula to heal my dad so that I can bring it home. But the problem was that he was so in to his like a disability that he ended up dying at 55. And that was like the beginning of, wow, you don't get to save everyone, and you just get to be a part of their journey. And sometimes holding that space and being rooted in healing is not very easy, and we get caught up in survival mode, and we just want to help, and we just want to do, and we just want to do the next best thing because it feels good, but you're not really rooting in healing because we don't want to really go into that deeper level. And my chapter just kind of speaks more on that. I was like, oh, I only have a certain amount of characters because I can't, it's only one chapter, but really I could have kept going and written my own damn book by myself. No, 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 hate y'all. But we
I
all got
told
more.
you,
Okay?
I want you to.
Yes,
We want you to
agreed.
Because it's
keep
just so
going.
much more to like really
Yeah,
give to people. This is a like nice appetizer and a little charcuterie board
exactly.
of fun, but we can go in deeper and really get to the meat of where what our stories really carry with us, and the essence of who we are. But I love this circle. Y'all are definitely my tribe. Y'all know if it wasn't for y'all, I'd probably be in a mental institution somewhere. Okay. Because it just gets that intense. But you do need a safe space to be your authentic self and to be able to just be with no judgment. And we've cried, we've laughed, we done had fun, we've been to the spa, and we were ourselves in every capacity. And that's what I love about this book, is that it just gives you a little bit of flavor of what it is when you allow yourself to be open to like healthy relationships and take the trauma lenses off and put on like healing lenses.
I love that.
Yeah.
And your bigger book is coming.
Yes. Very powerful. Thank you so much.
So to add on that, right? So we're talking about how our individual journeys have impacted like where we are today, right? So, our individual life stories are complex and they come with a lot of vulnerabilities, whether that's
Right.
mental, physical, spiritual. Like we have all these pieces of us that has pushed us into what I like to say is our healing profession, the space that
Right.
we're in. So then let's add the layer of like being an entrepreneur, right? Let's add the layer of being a practice practice owner, being a publisher, being a financial therapist, being an international speaker, educator. Now we just dumped a bunch of other stuff on that, right? Right? So we just made it even more complicated. So my chapter is kind of talking about that, talking about how when we are exploring all these other, facets of ourselves, just because we're in this profession doesn't mean we are excluded from the struggles that come from it, right? So we can sit, in our clinician therapist roles and help everyone kind of navigate their life's challenges. That doesn't mean that we can do that successfully for ourselves. That doesn't mean that like we, again, are, we can avoid, the different, struggles that come on top of all the different, titles that we have, achieved and like given ourselves and enjoy. So I wanted to share a little bit about how, being in that entrepreneurial space can be just, it can weigh a lot. Like it can weigh a lot. It can be a lot. Like it can lead to further depression and anxiety. It can lead to isolation. It can lead to, us feeling like we always have to be the top tier, like achieving, so much and being perfect. And that just is a lot. That's a lot. So it's like we individually, like in different parts of our life, can go through and process our trauma, process the things that we grew up with. And then it comes back again when we add these other pieces to it. And it's like, I thought I dealt with that.
Yeah.
I thought I dealt with that. I thought, I was healed and moving through, but it's showing up in a different way, because we're showing up in a different way. So it's like, what do you do with that? So my first chapter just kind of about this mental health tax that we go through being an entrepreneur is like, what do you do with that, right? So some of the things that I've kind of been learning throughout, my career and stuff, and without, especially with working in my private practice going on like 10 years now, is like, understanding that like I'm gonna have low moments, right? Every day is not gonna be a great day. I'm gonna have low moments. I'm gonna have days where I say, I want to quit. I want to quit working for myself. Like I'm over it. Like I think that's a regular occurrence for me. Like, nah, I want to do this no more. Like it happens, and we have to like normalize that. And then we have to figure out like, okay, we have to normalize it, acknowledge it, and like, what am I gonna do with that? So maybe that looks like resetting. Maybe that looks like delegating some tasks to some other people. Maybe that looks like giving myself some grace and giving myself a break, like, and just, celebrating all the wins, no matter how small it is up until now. So like, I just wanted to share a little bit about the fact that like, you still struggle even at the levels where we feel our best. Like we still struggle there. And then that led me into the other chapter about just finding your tribe. You need that, right? You need that support. So finding your tribe is different from just simply networking. We all know, and we're in these spaces, that networking is the thing that you have to do. Networking feels very transactional. So finding your tribe is different, right? This is, genuine connections. Like I mentioned before, this is not about just supporting and cheering your people on, but it's about also holding me accountable, also reminding me like I got this, also reminding me like it's okay to take a break, also like sharing like, I'm struggling too. I'm going through this too, and this is what's happening, so that it can really normalize this journey of life that we are going through. Like things are going to change as we actively, even like LaQueshia mentioned earlier, try these different things. Like our life is going to change. It is a journey. It is going to change, and you're going to need different things at different times. So having that tribe is just like very, very important. I think and I just mentioned that you don't have to go through this by yourselves. Like you don't have to go through this by yourselves. You need to find your core people that's going to understand you, that you can be completely honest with, that you can tell them, because I have told these ladies, like, I don't care about none of this. I don't want to do none of this. I'm over it. Like, I'm checking out. And they reel you back in to say, like, okay, what do you need right now? And then you can get back to that, because we know you love doing that too. So what is it that you need right now, right? So that was a big part of it. And, again, like I said, these ladies have been a part of my tribe. And I appreciate that, because I also shared a little bit in my chapter where like I was spiraling. Like I was spiraling bad. That mental health tax was like, girl, about to take you out of here. You get to a point where like, I'm working for myself, but do I have FMLA? Like, do I have short-term disability? Like, how does that work working for yourself? Being the boss for yourself? Like what? Like who, how does that work? Even some of the stories we've shared, like
What's the answer to
being,
that? What's the answer
listen, that's part of the business stuff too. You got to have your checks
I
and
know, I
balances
know.
and systems in place.
Right.
So that's something that I mentioned too. Like, we, especially when you're an entrepreneur, and even if you have employees that work for you, like we always thinking about them and how do we make sure they're taken care of. Like you got to think about yourself too. Like how do you make sure like you're gonna benefit from those benefits as well, right? So, those two chapters for me kind of just tied in terms of like I was getting to a real dark place and I was like, okay, like
Right.
doing it alone is not working. Clearly it's not working, but I also need a different group of people, right? So I have my family. My family is gonna root me on no matter what. They are there. They are like some of my biggest cheerleaders, but they also don't get the space that I'm in, right? So I also need to find other therapists, other healers that understand, other healers that have multiple titles that understand like we are just juggling a lot and just trying to make it out here and figure it out. So, that's what like, my two chapters are about. Like just normalizing, like we are still human. We are very much still human. I tell my clients all the time, like, I got it together for y'all outside of this session. Girl, I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, you might catch me on a bad day outside of this. And like, and then what does the support look like for you? How do you redefine that? How do you, for me, again, I'm able to put my tribe into categories. Like I said, I have my family and then I got my tribe too that understands this point of view, and it doesn't take away from each other. It's just that you just need that. So those are my two chapters.
Thank you, Brittany. And I wanted to put a pin in something that you said because I thought it was very powerful. This idea that as you grow as an entrepreneur, as a business owner in the work that you're doing, as you become a published author, as you are speaking out in front of a big group, all the things you thought that you had handled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I figured this out, I healed this. What will show up again, right?
Yep.
And it can get so frustrating when that happens. I know I've been there and been like, what the heck? Like, I already dealt with this. Why is this showing up again?
Right.
And it's just part of the process that as you expand, right, it's going to show up again. And if you can, like, your fact that you're calling that out and normalizing it is so helpful for people to, I think, know that it's actually showing that you're growing if it's showing up again.
Right. And then if we don't like acknowledge it, we're gonna get back to the state that LaQueshia was talking about, where we're burnt out again. We're back to like square one again.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and we've worked so hard to move away from that. So it's like, you have to continue to do the work, and it may be some sort of maintenance work to be like, oh, I thought I dealt with that. Okay, it's back. Like, what do I need to do this time? Like, how can I deal with it better this time? Or what do I need to switch up and do differently? But it's not gonna go anywhere. I think, in the world we live in, like there's gonna be some days.
Mhm.
There's gonna be some days, but there's
Mhm.
also gonna be some good days too. So, so it's like finding that balance. And what do we need to kind of like find that balance, especially like I said, with all the titles that we hold.
Thank you so
Can,
much.
can I just say, I really hope that all the ladies in this anthology go on to continue to expand upon their chapters and write individual books on all of this, because they're just so, and Danielle and Gina as well, they're just so powerful, and the messaging, like Pastor Bridget said, like this is just the snack, this is just the appetizer. And I yeah, it's just amazing.
Look at her adding pressure. I'm joking.
Well, I want to say too, as I was looking up, I always look up books in the categories that we're, publishing. There are not books that teach you how to do this. I did not find books that actually share, like, what do you do to be a successful therapist and be somebody that's also kind of a little entrepreneurial, right? And building that and focused on their healing. It's not like a how to, right? This does not exist out there. And especially as women of color, how incredible that you could bring this together and speak when that's not really out there either, and be that voice for people that could really give practical information that could help folks. So I love that you've all come together and put this out there. Anything that you'd like to share, LaQueshia, as some final shares to our listeners today?
No, just that they're amazing. Like I keep saying,
Yes.
like you won't be disappointed. Like just
Yeah.
hearing these snippets, like it's not a disappointment.
Mm-hmm. I want to thank you all. Thank you, Chantel and Brittany and LaQueshia and Bridget. It's wonderful to see you all. Everyone, please go grab your copy of Dear Therapist, You Deserve More, and share with therapists in your life that could use some support right now. Love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.